welcome to another edition of ATL Prime Sports. Todd Corder here in the ATL. Wayne with me in Memphis, our producer, and our special guest this evening is Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers. Let everybody know you can catch us all on Twitter at ATL Prime Sports. You can catch myself at Corder Todd, at JJ Get You One, Wayne at RWY Jr., and catch Dave at Georgia State. What was that, Georgia State? I forgot the end of your Twitter thing. I'm so sorry, man. I've been gone so long. What is it? Georgia State Voice, right?
Nope.
No, tell me. I messed up.
At GA State Voice.
At GA State Voice. I forgot him. I've been gone. I've been in Philadelphia. I've been doing a hockey tournament for Hockey TV. It's just been, I haven't really, these guys have been doing the show. I've been gone. So I forgot. My bad. So
obviously,
also,
Wayne, I'm not a priority in Todd's life.
Well, I'm not. Are you kidding me? I'm actually seeing my wife for the first time in a very long time. So I'm like been distracted. So it's a good distraction, actually. So also you can catch the show. You can catch it on you'll catch it on YouTube. You can catch it on all the social media platforms. You can go on Twitter. You can ask us questions and check it out and we'll all be glad to participate. But let's go ahead. We got that all out of the way. Dave, we're going to do something a little different with you before we get into Texas State, Georgia State, homecoming, the 2:00 game. We're going to talk about what is called, to me, pure playoff privilege. And my question is to you, and we'll give our opinion too, is A, if Cincinnati goes undefeated, do they deserve to be in the playoff? And B, if they do go undefeated, do you think they'll get in? Go ahead.
That's a tricky question. There's a part of me that obviously is hoping the answer to that is yes, if they go undefeated. There's two sides of that coin because all of the Power Five, what we'll call naysayers, are going to say, well, they didn't play the same caliber schedule that we play in the SEC or the ACC or the Pac-12, or whatever. It always ultimately comes down to the strength of schedule. Well, unless you're one of the, 12 or 14 teams in the SEC, you're never going to play that caliber of schedule. So that means you'll never have an opportunity to play in the postseason because you don't play in the SEC. Which is why I go back to my treehouse comparison because, they let a handful of teams come up into the treehouse and then they pull the ladder up. And nobody else is as good or plays as good or as strong a schedule as they do in the Southeastern Conference. If Cincinnati goes undefeated, I hope they get into the postseason. I think they'd be deserving of getting into the postseason. But you and I both know that, that's dicey at best. They'll find a reason, probably find a reason to put Notre Dame back in the college football playoff yet again, so that they can then turn around and get their doors blown off by whoever they're playing. So, yes, I am hopeful. I think it would be best for college football, but that's not necessarily the way things always play out. It ultimately comes down to, television having a say in it. And is Cincinnati, at the end of the day, Todd, going to bring enough eyeballs for television in order for them to okay them being a part of college football's postseason playoff?
Well, to me, it's the pure playoff privilege. If they go undefeated, I think they deserve to get in, but I don't think they will get in. I think they're going to need a lot of help at this point to get in because let's just say Georgia loses to Alabama. You're going to get Georgia and Alabama in it at this point. You've got a one-loss Ohio State and a one-loss Oregon. If Ohio State's only loss is to Oregon and Oregon only has one loss, all them four teams, I think, would pass over Cincinnati. If an undefeated Oklahoma gets in, they're going to pass Cincinnati. If an undefeated Oklahoma State gets in, they're going to pass Cincinnati. It's interesting you missed Notre Dame. Notre Dame would have no chance over Cincinnati. Cincinnati beat them earlier.
No, I know. And I said that in jest.
I know you did. I know you did.
Because you and I both know in some nondescript hotel somewhere, TV
Yep.
executives and the college football playoff committee executives are going to sit in a room where no one knows that they are. And next thing you know, when they come out, miraculously, Notre Dame will be in the postseason.
You know what hurts Cincinnati is, you mentioned the schedule. Gosh, Indiana was supposed to be really good this year. Their star quarterback, Penix, went down, and they've really struggled. And that would have been a key win. But Cincinnati has some games coming up. They got Houston coming up and Southern Methodist. If those teams can stay ranked, that really would help their cause, Dave,
Sure,
if they beat them.
You know, and again, at the end of the day, all that they can do is play the schedule that's before them.
That's right.
That's all they can do. They just got to keep winning. They've got to get to a point where they're undefeated, and then fingers crossed that the right decisions will be made. But you and I, again, both know that it doesn't always necessarily work that way.
The pure playoff privilege, it just depends. It'll be interesting to me when the first playoff standings come out. JJ and I had this conversation. I wish he was with us. We had it off the air where JJ's like, if Cincinnati's in the top 4 when this comes out, he goes, I don't think they'll take them out. And we've all seen the history of the playoff committee. Common sense, I would agree with them, but I've seen the history. I can see them bump it off. You can see it 2. Wayne could see it 3. I know deep down JJ can see it 4 somewhere. That they'll go, well, they just didn't play the schedule. We just can't put them on there.
Right.
And, Clemson's out. They would be on, now 2 losses. So, look, if the Big Ten beats each other up, that's going to help Cincinnati between Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. They're all going to play each other. So that's going to help. But if Ohio State is the team in with 1 loss, I think that hurts Cincinnati. If it's like Michigan State with 1 loss, I don't know. They've been in the playoff before. Penn State lost their quarterback. Iowa losing helped Cincinnati. So, I look at the ACC. What you got? Boston, Wake Forest is undefeated. I don't think anybody's going to run the table in the ACC. But if they did, that would hurt Cincinnati. And the Cincinnati's supposed to go in the Big 12. They're going to leave the AAC. So, what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, getting back to Wake Forest, can you imagine having a conversation where the Wake Forest Demon Deacons are in the conversation about being included in the playoff? Look, Florida State has not been good this year. Clemson has not been what we term Clemson good this year. I've seen North Carolina. They dropped 59 on Georgia State one week, and then they get their doors blown off by Georgia Tech at Mercedes-Benz Dome, a week or 2 later. They've been
they lost to Florida State.
Lost to Florida State. So, it's North Carolina. One week they look great, the next week they look terrible.
Right.
So they're not going to be in the conversation, but wouldn't it be absolutely hilarious because Florida State, North Carolina, Clemson are not going to be in the discussion, that rising to the top in the ACC is all of a sudden the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest? Did you ever think that you'd be in a discussion where that would come up?
You know what? I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room if it's Wake Forest, Cincinnati, Alabama, and Georgia for the fun of it. I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room.
See, I love that, though. That, to me, is great for college football because that just would be further proof that it's open to everybody. And it's not just going to be the same 8 to 10 to 12 teams in the mix and in the discussion every single season.
Could you imagine? I think if Oregon wins out, they'll get in. They need a team from the West Coast in. It would fit the national game, quote unquote, priority that the college football wants to meet. I think if Oregon wins out, they'll most likely get in. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State are going to beat each other. But if Oklahoma runs the table and then Georgia loses to Alabama. Now, if Alabama loses to Georgia, Alabama's out. We're only going to get 1 SEC team in there. That would help Cincinnati too. There's a lot of scenarios. I play most of them. I don't see Cincinnati in with most of them. That's how I see it. Wayne, what do you think?
Well, I think that the only way Cincinnati gets in is if they are the only undefeated team left at the end of the whole thing. And I don't think that's going to happen because this is going to be a weird prediction, but I think Cincinnati is going to lose to SMU.
Well, then that would just take the rest of this conversation for another year.
Yeah, and SMU won't get in because they're going to get beat by Memphis. So you can forget about the American Conference being in any type of playoff thing.
Well, in the future, Dave, when they come up with the 12-team playoff, these teams will get in. But it would be a sweet story if Cincinnati ran the table and got in.
Sure would, because, I'm sure you've been reading, the American Athletic is going to look a lot different sooner than later. With the 6 teams that apparently are being mentioned as the replacement for the 3 that are going to the Big 12. So, again, that league is going to look different pretty soon. It would be nice. It would be great if Cincinnati does run the table. I don't have their schedule right in front of me with regards to all of their the 4 non-conference games.
Notre Dame and Indiana were 2 of them.
Okay, so that's 2 of them. So those, on paper, those are 2 pretty decent wins. Notre Dame on paper is a decent win.
Indiana would have been, but they've lost. They lost their quarterback. They lost a bunch of games.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, at the beginning of the season,
right,
when you're looking at the schedule and penciling in wins and losses, a win over Notre Dame, that goes in the column of being a great win.
No doubt.
Indiana goes in, I think, of being a good win, and I'm not sure again of the other 2. That are part of their non-conference schedule. But listen, it's going to be they will, if they get in, it would be by default because there's not a clear path by a Power 5 with the argument of playing the strength of schedule.
Cincinnati needs to root for Notre Dame to win out and beat USC starting this Saturday. That would be a nice trickle down effect for them. If Notre Dame can win out, that win's going to look good, and that'll go a long way. There's no doubt. That would be an awesome thing. Speaking of trickle down, is Georgia State, are some teams going to leave the Sun Belt Conference? Could Georgia State potentially, with all this conference realignment?
Well, I can only speak for myself. If you've been following on Twitter, there's been a number of stories that have come out in the last day or 2 about the 6 schools out of the Conference USA that are apparently interested in, have been invited to, have applied to the American Athletic Conference, which then opens up another can of worms. If that happens and all 6 of the schools that have been mentioned do leave, what happens then to Conference USA? Because I think that leaves them with, 7 or 8 schools
at max, right?
So then they've got to turn around, and they would be kind of in the same boat the Sun Belt was in 7 or 8 years ago when Georgia State first joined. The reason that happened is because Middle Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, North Texas, and the 2 Floridas, Florida International and Florida Atlantic, all left the Sun Belt to go to Conference USA under the perception that Conference USA was a step up from the Sun Belt, which maybe at one time it was, but I can tell you honestly right now it's not. And Wayne, I think, agrees with me.
Yeah, I do.
I know he does. I saw him shaking his head. I agree with you, too. That makes 3 of us.
But that just goes to show how things can change, because at the time Georgia State came in, again, we did not bring a fantastic football program into the Sun Belt. What we brought was the Atlanta market, a pretty good men's basketball program, a decent women's basketball program, and again, a young, upstart, transitioning and growing football program. But at the end of the day, what the Sun Belt saw as well, I think they saw 2 things. They saw that Georgia State was an original charter member of the Sun Belt Conference back in the mid-'70s, and they saw the Atlanta market. And I think the one thing that Georgia State has always had going for it, no matter how good or bad we've been in any of our sports, is the fact that we bring the Atlanta market, which is why I know from the reports that I've read that there were 16 schools in the initial pool that the American Athletic was looking at, from what I've read. I've heard Georgia State was among the 16. It would be hard to assume, to look at it and say, no, Georgia State wasn't one of the 16 schools, especially, again, being in the Atlanta market, that they wouldn't be interested in. But I don't know 100% sure whether the interest from the American Athletic was not strong, or if the interest from Georgia State to up and move out of the Sun Belt, which has been a great home for Georgia State athletically, was something that they were wanting to embrace at this time from Georgia State's standpoint. So,
you know what it made? You made a great point. Georgia State is in the Atlanta market. That's what they have going for them. And, the program has made good strides since being in the Sun Belt and since starting as a program. They've only been, 10 years. So they've made some excellent strides. Somebody will want to take Georgia State and move them up to another conference. I do believe that just because of the Atlanta market.
well, here's the thing, though. How often is there conference upheaval? I mean, none of this would be happening if Oklahoma and Texas had stood pat and decided not to make that move to the SEC. So what we're seeing is the domino effect right now. Well,
right.
In the future, something again would probably have to happen to get the dominoes falling in order for it to reach down to Georgia State, unless somewhere down the line the American Athletic just decided, hey, we'd love to add the Atlanta market.
I'll throw another scenario. West Virginia sitting out there in the Big 12. They can't want to continue to be in the Big 12 after Texas and Oklahoma leave. There has got to be a way that they could get in the Big 10 and play Pitt and have the backyard brawl back every year. Plus Pitt, if they could somehow get in the Big 10, they would play Penn State and West Virginia either year or every year, or put West Virginia ACC and get the backyard brawl. I just think regionally, this stuff about playing conference games across the country, to me, needs to go away. It just needs to go away. We need to get back to our traditional rivalries. The SEC now is the old Big 12. I mean, the West, you're going to have Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Texas A&M. I mean, this Missouri. I mean, it's going to look like, the SEC is just stealing half of the Big 12, and they're putting it against each other. So
again, it's all based on television. For example, was it really, in hindsight, was it a really good move for Maryland and Rutgers, or for Maryland to leave the ACC to go to the Big Ten?
It was financially.
Again, because of television.
Right, because of television, but basketball-wise, it's the Big Ten is a different style of play than the ACC. The ACC is up and down. The Big Ten is a little slower, a little more physical. And Maryland seems to adjust because they have a good program, but football-wise, it did Big Ten zero good.
What did Rutgers bring to the Big Ten other than being
The
able
New
to
York
claim?
Market.
Okay, well, how much is Rutgers a player in the New York sports market?
Little to none, and I'll say almost none.
That's my point.
Yep.
It was a reach by the Big. It was a big reach by the Big Ten.
And Rutgers is getting better in basketball, and with Shiano in football, they may make some strides. But arguably, they're in the second toughest division in college football, with Michigan, right. Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. Holy smokes! Good luck with that.
Think about it. How often are any or most of those schools ever going to be having what we'll call a down year?
The four that I just mentioned, the Big Four, rarely.
Right. I say that. I said that to somebody about the Sun Belt. Georgia State's in the Sun Belt East, and the level that the program is trying to rise to would be one that competes every year consistently with now Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina. I'm going to throw Georgia Southern in there because it's the rival, and obviously Troy. Troy's having a 50-50 year this year is what I'd call it.
Yeah,
but the point is, I said to somebody, well, okay, not so much Coastal Carolina because they're kind of a newcomer. And yeah, they've been good. They were really good last year and they're really good this year, but that's just a sample of 2 seasons. Appalachian State is a sample of many seasons. And I said, well, how often has Appalachian State had what we'll call a down year? Right. In other words, Georgia State's going to have to really be good and step up its game football-wise to a level where it can run with Appalachian State every single season. And right now, in 8 meetings since they joined the Sun Belt, we're 0-8 against them.
Yeah, that hurts. There's no question about it. And well, since we're talking about Georgia State, we'll just go ahead and transition over to Georgia State with their game for the homecoming versus Texas State this Saturday at 2 p.m. Tell us the keys to the game and give us a scouting report on Texas State.
Well, I'll start you out with a quick scouting report on Georgia State. These teams are not identical, but record-wise they are. They're both 2-4. They're both 1-1 in the Sun Belt Conference. You know, Georgia State's off week came at a really good time, basically at the midway point of the season. We played 6, had an off week, and we're going to play 6. Now, after Texas State, and I know media-wise we look ahead, the players and the coaches don't, at least admittedly.
Right.
But the second part of the gauntlet is awaiting after this weekend, because we've got to play 3 straight road games at Georgia Southern, at Louisiana Lafayette, and then at Coastal Carolina. So this is a big game. If Georgia State wins this game, they go to 3-4. If they can get Georgia Southern, which is in Statesboro, and they're struggling, they've replaced their coach this year, or they've got an interim, then you're 4-4. You're 4-4 going into Louisiana Lafayette, who we lost to in overtime in Atlanta last year, and a team in Coastal Carolina that ran us out of our own stadium last year. And then your 2 final regular season games are at home against Troy and Arkansas State. My point is, can you get to 6-6?
Right.
And put the name Georgia State in the mix for one of those 2 remaining bowl games? Because you and I already know Coastal Carolina is going to get 1. Appalachian State's going to get is going to get a bowl bid, and Coastal Carolina. So Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, App State. Those are 3 of the 5 bowl bids. Everybody else is playing for the other 2, unless Coastal Carolina finds themselves in the running for a bid outside the Sun Belt 5.
Wouldn't it be wild if they ran the table, Dave, and go, hey, what about us in the playoff? We know that part wouldn't happen. But
that's not going to happen.
Right, that's not going to happen. But they could maybe go to a BCS bowl game undefeated.
Possibly, but strength of schedule will come back to.
Right, I just threw it out there because we were talking about earlier. Go ahead.
I agree. That's what we call wishful thinking, Todd.
Right, very much so.
I'm totally with you. That'd be great if that happened. We need a little more parity in college football.
I see the smile on Wayne's face. He would love the Beach Chickens to go, oh, well, he don't want them to beat Georgia State, but if they did, we don't want to beat Georgia State, but if they did, if they went undefeated, then we would definitely root for them to get a BCS bid. It would be awesome.
Well, they're not going to go undefeated because they're going to get beat this weekend.
You got to beat he said he's picking App State to beat Coastal Carolina.
That's totally possible. No, those are 2 of the 3 best teams in the Sun Belt.
Right.
And so it wouldn't surprise me one iota. What was surprising was, in their last outing, Louisiana beat App fairly handily. They did not look like the Appalachian State that we have seen in the past. So that, that goes under the moniker of on any given Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, you never know what's going to happen. That game was also in Lafayette, but
right.
So Georgia State and Texas State are, again, identical records. They're coming off a tough loss to Troy at home, 31-28. The key for us, it's interesting. We put 55 points on Louisiana Monroe 2 weeks ago, and they come back and beat a really, really good Liberty team in Monroe. Yeah. Who would have thunk it? That's why I'm lucky I don't bet, because I'd have lost the house on that one. But Monroe showed some signs, credit their coaching staff and their players to bounce back after a week of giving up 55 to us, to come back and beat what we all know is a really good Liberty team. But, for Georgia State, Darren Granger's got to continue and pick up where he left off throwing the football at Monroe. He's got his completion percentage up to about 59-60%. He's thrown his touchdown to interception ratio is really good, 9 touchdowns. He's been picked off 3 times. One of them was to Smoke Monday in the Auburn game with, 25, 30 seconds remaining. So still goes as an interception, but he was basically trying to make something happen with very little time left in the ball game. And another interesting aspect is, we came back and ran the ball much better at Louisiana Monroe than we did against Appalachian State. And I interviewed him today for one of our radio practice reports, but we got to get the ball back in the hands of Tucker Gregg, who ran for 150 at Auburn and then came back and I think touched the ball 3 or 4 times in the Appalachian State game. Right now, he's our starting running back, and he's got to have more than 3 to 5 carries a football game. And the other thing that will be really, really nice is if Sam Pinckney is back, and if Cornelius McCoy can begin to work his way back into a healthy position, a healthy situation. They would join the guys that have really stepped up in their absence. Guys like Jamari Thrash, a kid from over in the West Georgia area. And the transfer from the University of Central Florida, Jakias Cradle, who's been a real pleasant surprise. He's got 14 catches, 3 touchdowns already this year. But, one of the encouraging signs out of Monroe was that Aubrey Payne caught 2 touchdown passes. He's one of our 2 tight ends, or one of our 2 tight ends that we see a lot, he and Roger Carter. So it was really good to see Aubrey get back into the swing of things and be a target for Darren Granger. I feel like we, should target our tight ends, a little bit more. I think back to that Auburn game, sometimes I think maybe we should have targeted the tight ends a little bit more when it was coming down to crunch time. But again, with Texas State, they come in. The interesting thing about their quarterback, Brady McBride, he completes about 60% of his passes. The thing that stuck out, he's passed for over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So this could be a game, depending on how it transpires, that our guys like Chris Moore and Antavius Lane and some of the other guys, some of your other corners and your safeties can come back and maybe pick up an interception or 2. We could really use a few more takeaways. In this game this week against Texas State. And we've had some success against Texas State. We didn't play them last year, but the game that I remember was 2 years ago in San Marcos. We lost in triple overtime on a missed field goal.
Yeah.
So,
there's a lot of razor thin margins here in the Sun Belt, Dave. I mean, there really is. These games can go either way any given Saturday. You got 18 to 22-year-olds. This is the key game for Georgia State, like you said. If they want to get into a bowl game, it's a must win. The next one would be an awesome win. Not only would it make them at 4-4, but it would beat their rival, Georgia Southern. And, that stuff plays into recruiting. It plays in everything. And it would be a great way for Georgia State to get back to the even Steven point at 500.
Like I said, the next 2, if we're going to make a run at 6 wins, the next 2 are games that you can get, because if you don't, then you're going to have to steal one at Louisiana, or you're going to have to steal one at Coastal Carolina. And again, if you're a betting man, you're going to take that bet.
No, I'm not, but I would sure love to see a sweet victory over Coastal Carolina. I just would love to see that. It would really open up the eyes around here for folks locally and get more interested in Georgia State football, because there's a lot of positive things that are happening in the program.
It's the challenge, Todd, of being a group of 5 mid-major program in a major market that's loaded with SEC, with ACC, and with 4 professional sports. And at one time, if the Thrashers were still here, this would be a 5 professional sport market. With minor league hockey and with minor league baseball as well at the AAA level. As you know, there's a lot going on here. And the way for Georgia State to compete in this marketplace, you got to win.
That's right. You're right.
Win.
You're competing with everything else. Dave, we're out of time. Thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed the discussion in many different areas. And I know your Red Sox. I know you're waiting for them to get to the World Series. And if they play Atlanta, that would be awesome.
That would be Katie bar the door right there, because, that would be teams 1 and 2. A lot of the pressure, I was telling somebody, the pressure is off for the Red Sox. To me, the pressure came off in 2004 when they exorcised the ghosts of the St. Louis Cardinals and the New York Yankees, right?
Right.
As a matter of fact, who had maybe the biggest stolen base in Red Sox history? Dave Roberts, who's managing the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Correct.
Exactly. So,
and he stole it off Mariano Rivera.
Right. So but the pressure is off because they've since won 3 World Series starting in 2004. But Atlanta-Boston would be huge.
It would be, and you know what I like? I like the wheelbarrow in the dugout. I just roll when I see that. I just roll. I don't know who came up with it. The first time I saw it, I said, "What the heck is that?" And I thought, they're having fun. That's great to see.
Well, it would be an opportunity, and I'm not saying I want this to happen. It would be an opportunity for Atlanta to avenge the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots.
Oh, I knew that. I knew that was coming. I was doing a countdown in my head, and I'm like, 5,
I'm just
4,
saying,
3.
from the standpoint of being able to avenge a city-to-city win-loss situation, this is the first opportunity that will have presented itself.
Yeah, and you know what they'll do? If it comes down to a Game 7 and Atlanta's ahead, they're going to throw the championship bracket up there that, what Atlanta has is 1, and then Boston has a ton. And then if Boston comes back and wins it again, it's going to be the same replay. So we'll have to wait and see. Dave, tell us where they get the game, where we can hear you, and then we got to let you go.
All right, last thing, Matt Ryan got to be able to throw out the first pitch if it comes to that in Atlanta. He's got to be one of the guys that throws out a first pitch.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
A guy played at Boston College, too, so I don't know who
Right.
he'd be. Well, he's going to tell you he's rooting for the Braves, but a Boston College guy, who knows?
I was in his hometown, Exton, Pennsylvania, this Saturday. So this weekend. Right.
Anyway,
so tell us where we can get it real quick.
All right, Georgia State, Texas State homecoming game at Center Park Stadium. 1:30 airtime, 2 o'clock kick. Flagship radio, 88.5 FM. WRAS, you can also listen to us by downloading the GSU Athletics mobile app to your mobile device. And you can also always go to TuneIn Radio in their app, which is fantastic, and just search WRAS. But that's coming up Saturday, airtime 1:30. And again, GA State Voice.
GA State Voice. I'm telling you, I haven't been on the podcast in a while. I mean, I've been gone. I've been doing college football on ESPN Plus. I'm doing hockey on Hockey TV. I've made 2 trips to Philadelphia. I have to make another one here. I've got a sandwich or Thanksgiving vacation around that, going up to see my wife's family. We're actually going to go on our anniversary right after I do the next college game. It's just an absolute schedule nightmare, but I'll work it out.
It's good to be busy, isn't it?
It's fabulous. 2020 to me is in the mirror, and I'm looking forward to every day. Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I enjoy
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Look forward to talking to you next week, as always, and hopefully we'll get a Georgia State win.
All right. Let's hope it. I'll talk to you next week.
You take care.
See ya.
All right, see ya. That's Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers here on ATL Prime Sports. You know, Wayne, I had to bring up the baseball to him. I'm so sorry I took longer than was expected with him, but it was such a good time with him. And, you know, the Braves are up, 2-1 now in the series against the Dodgers. You know, who would have thought at the beginning of the playoffs that Atlanta would be up where they are 2-1 over the Dodgers, 2 games away from the World Series. They had the 12th best record in Major League Baseball. Had they not been in the American League East, they would have never made the playoffs. They would have been out of the playoffs in every other division in a wild card or division scenario. Heck, if they were in the AL East and they switched places with Baltimore, they would have finished 5th, which is last. So it's an incredible story. They've gotten this far. You have to thank Alex Anthopoulos for the trades, because to me, getting Jock Peterson, Eddie Rosario, Adam Duvall, they revamped that outfield when they lost Acuna to a season-ending injury. To me, this was so key to turning this team around. They started really playing good baseball in September. You know, they're 2 wins away from getting to the World Series. I mean, this is an incredible story. And if they get there, it'll be the first time they got to the World Series since '99 when they got swept by the Yankees. And, you know, you just have to be able to you just have to give Atlanta a lot of credit. You know, they beat Milwaukee. Milwaukee wasn't playing good baseball in September. They really struggled. St. Louis had their number. That's how St. Louis got in the wild card. So, you know, they're up 2-1 to the Dodgers. This is an absolute incredible achievement for Atlanta. And you have to give Atlanta, Alex Anthopoulos, a lot of credit. Brian Snicker, a lot of credit for revamping that outfield. That's the difference where they got. And, you know, Rosario's been so key in this series with the clutch hits. Austin Riley's been key with clutch hits. You know, that was the first time that the Braves had back-to-back walk-off hits between 91 and 92 and back-to-back in the playoffs when they did that. So it's an incredible achievement, Wayne. And hats off to Atlanta that they're in this, and they've got a shot to beat who I think is a phenomenal team in the Dodgers, who won 18 more games than they did in the regular season, even though the Atlanta has the home field advantage. Going to Los Angeles and, you know, taking 2 out of 3. They lost tonight 6-5. They had a 5-2 lead in the 8th inning, and they blew it. They lost 6-5. I know Cody Bellinger had a 3-run homer, and that was the key to the Dodgers' resurgence and coming back and winning this game. But if you're Atlanta, you still have a shot to take at least 1 of 2 and come back home 3-2 to get to the series, and they have a puncher's chance. I know last year they were down 3-1. They played the series out in Texas and ended up losing it. The Dodgers went on to win the World Series. But, Wayne, they're playing in front of fans. This is a completely different scenario than a year ago.
Yep, you are correct.
No doubt about it. I'm so excited to see the rest of this series. You know, it just ended. It was a heartbreaking loss. But you know what about baseball? You know what's great about it? They get to play the next day. And they still have the rotation intact. You know, the Dodgers' rotation is deeper. This series is going to come down to me, who's going to get to whose bullpen. That's what it's going to come down to. Because, you know, you see these guys in a long 7-game series. These hitters start getting used to these relievers. They don't see them as often in the regular season. Now they're going to see them every day. They don't have 4 pitches like a starter. They usually have 2. And they're going to sit there and are going to get used to them. They're going to use the arm angle, the timing, what pitch they're going to throw in what sequence. I mean, this is a chance for, you know, I think the offenses are going to get bigger as the series goes. I think you're going to see more runs scored each game because each team's bats is going to get used to each team's bullpen. That's the way I see it. I see it going 7 games just like a year ago. I do see the Dodgers winning it, but if the Braves can take one of them in Los Angeles, they have a great shot. It would be a fantastic story knowing they had the 12th best record in baseball. And if they can get to the World Series, like Dave said earlier, and play his Red Sox, we would have to talk a little bit of baseball with Dave and football if that does happen. So anyway, that's that. They lost 6-5 tonight. They still lead the series 2-1. I'm looking forward to Game 4 tomorrow, my friend. It's time for the Pick 6, and then we're done with the show.
All right, we're going to hit that Pick 6. Let's give a rundown of where everybody stands at right now. We got JJ in the lead with 20-22, so 20 wins, 22 losses. Me, second place, 19-23, and you bringing up the rear, 17-25. First game on tap, Coastal Carolina at App State. I'm going with App State. Who you got?
Coastal Carolina at App State. I'm sorry, you said that, correct?
That is correct.
I'm going, look, I'm behind you, I'm bringing up the rear with JJ. I know we're only 6 weeks into this puppy, but I need to start making up some ground, so I'll take Coastal Carolina. What's the line on that game? You forgot to tell me.
3.5.
You got to tell me the line every time, man. I'm still taking Coastal Carolina. How's that?
All right. Next game up is Clemson at number 23, Pittsburgh. The spread is 3 for Pittsburgh. So if you pick Pittsburgh, they're going to win by more than 3.
Pittsburgh's the favorite. Who would have thunk that at the beginning of the college football season? Pittsburgh's got one hell of a quarterback. And Clemson is struggling to score. I would have never, ever, 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 ever at the beginning of the season picked Pittsburgh over Clemson in the Pick 6. But look out, I'm going to do it. I'll take Pittsburgh, and they'll cover.
Yeah, I'm picking Pittsburgh also. Okay, third college game, Tennessee at number 4, Alabama. This spread is way too much. They got Bama at 24.5. I'm taking, but surprisingly, I'm taking Bama in this one because there's no way they're losing to Tennessee at home.
And it's 24.5 Alabama over Tennessee?
Right.
Man, that is tough.
You know Alabama's going to cover that. Come on.
I do too. I'm picking Alabama, but it's tough. I think it's going to be close, but I'll roll Tide with that one. I just will. And you know they've got to win out to get in the playoffs, so I'll choose Alabama.
All right, next moving on to the NFL. Broncos at the Cleveland Browns. They get Cleveland at 3.5. I'm taking the Browns to cover.
What was the spread again? I'm my ears. I'm sorry.
3.5.
And where's that game at?
At Cleveland.
3.5 Cleveland. You know, the quarterback there is hurting. Baker. He's hurting big time. But the Broncos have lost 3 in a row. They're struggling. I'll take the Browns. What do you have?
I'm taking the Browns as well.
And I can't catch you if you're taking the same games I am. I think you're doing this on purpose to me. It's a conspiracy. What's the next one?
All right, Falcons at Dolphins. Atlanta, 2.5. They're giving the Atlanta the benefit on this one. I'm taking the Falcons to cover.
Of course you are. And the Dolphins are coming off a loss to Jacksonville and Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer. The game is in Miami, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll take the Falcons to cover. Next.
All right, Bengals at Ravens. Baltimore is 6.5. I am taking the Bengals on this one because I still think they're sore from last week and looking to beat up on somebody.
The Bengals did beat somebody last week. They beat the heck out of the Lions. Everybody likes the Lions.
All right, I forgot about that game.
You're thinking of the Green Bay game. Nope. Yeah. This is when you and I differentiate. I got the Ravens to cover. I got to make up 2 games on you somewhere. And this is where I make up the 2 games on you. And I catch you. I'm going to win this thing. Consider me the Dodgers of picking games here. I'm down, but I'm not out. And I'll try to come back and do it. We're going to get JJ's right. And then you're going to go ahead and put it up. So, and then you'll. And things like that. I just want to let everybody know that's the end of the show. We're going to start going live starting Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio. That'll be our first podcast of the week. And then, of course, we do this show the next day or so. So that'll be 11 a.m. on Blog Talk Radio, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then you can listen to the show on blogtalkradio.com or 1-347-205-9631. Please listen to the show and support the show. You can like and subscribe to the show. Please do that also. And if you want to give us a shout, give us your predictions on the games that we've given. You can compare your results with ours. You can go to ATL Prime Sports. You can go to JJ Get You One. You can go to you, RWY Jr., or you can go to me at Corder Todd. And we should ask Dave to do it. I can't believe I forgot his Twitter thing. Just can't. I just can't believe it. But then again, I can. And hey, the Falcons are coming off a bye. So that's also part of the reason why I'm picking them. You know, the They got a bye after going to London. They went there and they took care of the Jets, which, they should. This team can get back close to that 500 mark that you just never know. There's a lot of games now. There's 17 regular season games. So, all right, that's the end of the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great week, everybody.